We are the One Story Podcast. We believe in the power of a story. Everyone has a story, and that story is meaningful. Your story can make a difference. Your story can inspire others. Your story is important. At the same time, ultimately, everyone's story is a part of one story, the big God story.
It's not what you said. You're not who you said you were. When are you alone? When will you come back home?
Hey, we're back with the One Story Podcast. This is episode 13.
Woohoo!
Lucky number 13. My name is Drew, and I'm with my friend Isaac.
What up?
How we doing tonight?
Oh man, I'm so excited.
Another fun night here in the studio, the One Story Podcast headquarters.
HQ, baby.
Tonight is a special episode. We're excited to be here. And before we get this thing kicked off, I just wanted to give a shout out to, well, one, everyone that's listening. Just thank you for those that are listening, the continued listeners, and those that pop in every once in a while. I'm just thankful that we're able to do this thing. I mean, I have a job and I like it. It's a good one, but this is like something that I look forward to every week. And like, I'm loving doing this, and it's kind of easy too.
So if every one of you guys just send us $1 each, we'd be
right.
No, I feel you, brother. I look forward to this. I have to consciously not think about it, or else it would consume me, because I get so like pumped up, excited, especially when we know who's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, we know who's coming in, but like
but
for every guest, I'm like, oh, this is it's pumped, especially like tonight. But
and to see and just to be ready for like what's coming, and like what I was saying was, as far as like being easy, is just, I don't know. I feel like, well, we're answering God's call of what he's calling us to do, and we have people on, and they're just telling their story, and it's the story that God wants to come across, the one story, his story that we're all involved with, and so we just get to sit here, turn on the mics, and let it go,
privileged.
So it's awesome.
Privilege.
Yeah.
I know. I think that too. I'm just like, gosh, Lee, we're so. I mean, we're blessed. I mean, just by being able to sit here and hear it, and I mean, I think I was telling you that I feel a little bad that like not that we're. I don't want to say exploiting, but no. But that we're taking someone's story and we're sharing it, and it's like, and they get nothing for it. It's like, I don't know. It's
but it's not. It's not about.
So blessed, and it's just privilege, man.
The shows are about them, the guests, but then ultimately it's about how God's working in the lives of people, everyday people that you're walking around with, and and see, like, there's a story behind everyone, and it's not always pretty. It's not always wrapped up in a bow and have everything figured out, and that's real. That's it's not, I'm a follower of Jesus and now everything's perfect. That's far from it. Like
what?
Say what? That's just not how it is. Like, life is hard, life is tough, but doing it with Jesus, following him, it's different. It's a different story that's told.
Yeah, you get some answers. That's the one thing. That's like kind of the benefits of being a Christ follower. You have someone, all the wisdom in the world at the call of his name, essentially. Mm-hmm. I mean, he might not show you right away, but if you listen closely, like I always request everybody to do.
There's still the unknown. There's the things that we're never going to know, and that's the mystery of God.
But that's something that we have hope for, is that right. moment when we meet him. We will know. Yeah. So,
right on.
It's exciting.
Just wanted to give a shout out to Grandma Mary Lou. Today would have been her 81st birthday. My grandma, she's passed away for a year and a half now.
Oh, but wow. Actually, that went by quick.
I know. And I was just thinking about her and just what a great woman she was, and so wow. Shout out to Grandma Spice.
Well, this episode will be dedicated to her.
Yeah, there you go.
Did you say Grandma Spice?
That's what we used to call her. Because one time, quick story. One time, she's older. We're playing, soccer, someone's tournament. I was maybe like in high school or like 8th grade or something. And she's walking out to Behringer Field, and it's like muddy, like it just rained the night before. And she's walking out in like heels, like stiletto heels or something, like digging in the grass. Started calling her Grandma Spice.
Hey, she needed that grip, dude. She's like,
she rocked it. She rocked it. She wanted to be spicy.
That is hilarious. So shout out to Grandma Spice. This show's for you.
So let's get, or go ahead.
No. I was going to say, about tonight's guest. It's kind of leading up to it. Me and Drew we had an empty spot, and we had talked about how, well, this show, just so everybody knows, for me and Drew, we really try to let God kind of just take the wheel and lead it in every way, even when it comes to our guests. And when we didn't have a guest at the time, I had been praying, like, Lord, because Drew actually was the one that was kind of pushing it. Like, we really need to let God kind of run this thing. So I had been praying, like, hey, like, Lord, like, send us somebody. Who should we have on? Like, give me a name, show me who we should have. And probably a couple days later, we got a text from our best bud, Rich McIntosh.
That's right.
Hello, gentlemen.
Rich is in the house here.
And this is something you didn't know, Rich, but yeah, and so we got the text. You put us on a group test saying that you wanted to come on and share your story. And me and Drew called each other. Drew called me like, "Oh, what do you think about this?" And I told him, actually, I'd been praying about God sending us somebody, and then you had text. I was like, all right, so guess it's on.
You guys cut me out of the group text?
We had a sidebar.
There's a lot you don't know, Rich.
Sidebar conversation.
I've always wanted to do this, though. Hi, guys. Long-time listener, first-time caller?
First time guest.
First-time guest.
Yeah. So we got Rich on. We're excited to hear his story, just his journey in life and the perspective that he's coming from. But yeah.
What's so a little background of how we know Rich. You know him from Drew,
we met in 7th grade, I think. Is that when you started going to Hutchinson? Or was it 8th grade? Okay, so 8th grade is when I met you, but some of the same friends that I had already known you from playing baseball.
Yes.
But I wasn't playing baseball at the time because, it's not that great of a sport.
One Story Podcast is not a fan of baseball.
Baseball is cool. I mean, all sports are awesome and team sports, but
if you're lame, for sure.
And if you're watching it on TV or playing it, or so that's when I met Rich, and then we weren't like super close, but then like football or freshman high school.
And that's when I met Rich freshman year football. We all played football together. Yeah. That's where we really kind of started a bond.
And we became kind
of
the
gridiron
with a couple other buddies, like a pretty close knit little crew. Or
ready.
we pretty much
no ready hit. Oh. Come on, guys.
I didn't know where you were going with that.
Give me 20. Get them up.
We pretty much did everything together. I mean, we did a ton together.
Especially me and Rich. Actually, Rich, I will say, is my best friend, hands down. And reunited, and it feels so no, but I will say that I lived with Rich for 2 years. Back in high school.
That was interesting.
High school, outside high school. Rich has seen me naked more than he's seen me naked more than my wife has.
Oh boy.
So just kind of
unfortunately,
weird.
Yes.
That's weird.
Don't say that. You enjoyed it. I don't know where this is going, but my point is that me and Rich have a real deep bond, a real strong relationship. Like I said, I was saying that we as we've gotten older, we both have families, and we've drifted apart, as far as not talking to each other a ton, or on a regular basis. However, you're the godfather of my first daughter. You're, someone that I call for everything. And as far as if there's a party, you're always going to be on the guest list.
Well, I appreciate that.
Right on, man.
And
that's deep.
Yeah, that is very deep. And Isaac,
that's called sobbing.
Is he sobbing right now? It's been a wild ride. And this episode's definitely not going to be wrapped up in a nice little bow, I tell you.
Hey, man, that's life.
That's how it is. But God is good, and we're always striving to better ourselves. So,
amen. So who is Rich McIntosh? What's your story, man?
Let's start with conception.
I was the fastest. So I was born and raised here in, not Norwalk, but La Mirada, down the street. Same age as Drew and Isaac, 33. We were all born, I think, in 84, right?
I was actually born in 85, but you guys were Yeah,
Yeah, we're
you're 84s. I'm 85. The better year.
The year the Bears won the Super Bowl, baby.
The Bears.
the Bears.
We can't go on like this because it'll just go into a whole Saturday Night Live skit.
Ditka.
Got a sausage line in the line in my heart.
All right, back to the story.
You all right?
I think I'm broke. I'm broke.
Who wins in a fight? Ditka or Tyson?
Hurricane.
No, Hurricane. But the Hurricane's name is Ditka. Ooh. So we're back on track here. Basically, great childhood growing up. Both parents in the house. Younger brother and a younger sister.
Mm-hmm.
The oldest, huh?
I am the oldest, number one.
And numero uno.
And they all know it.
Yes. And really, really good. We didn't grow up rich. We didn't have a ton of money, but we always had what we needed.
Was your parents' professions?
My dad, was in aerospace for a long time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And then he went into teaching. We got his teaching degree.
Didn't he have a stint playing baseball?
Yes, he did. He was drafted by the Detroit Tigers.
There you go,
now.
baby.
Never played in the majors, but did get drafted. Yes.
Oh, nice.
Baseball's a great sport, and it's America's pastime.
It
so
is America's pastime, Drew.
We love baseball
Because
here.
that's what you do when you're trying to pass the time.
6 hours of it.
So we lived right here in La Mirada pretty much my whole childhood. In about 1990, my father was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, which is enlargement of the heart. So he was diagnosed, and it was so he had to quit the job he was doing. It was too demanding physically. So he actually said, "All right, well, I'm going to go back to school and get my teaching degree," because he always loved coaching and teaching and things of that nature. So went back, was teaching for a couple of years, and then
You coach baseball?
baseball, football.
Did he coach you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah.
cool.
Yeah. My dad to me was this larger than life figure. He was
And he was though, right?
he was like 6'5", 300 pounds. I mean, just a
Hey, big man.
big
Nice.
dude, and but he was my my mentor, my friend. We did everything together. He had us in church all the time. We were, unless the Dodgers were on, Sunday morning, they're playing on the East Coast. We were all right. Let's just stay home today. But
What church did you guys go to?
Granada Heights, right there in La Mirada, off of La Mirada Boulevard, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, right there.
Just north of Imperial.
Yes, north of Imperial.
Okay.
And my grandparents actually still go to that church.
Oh, okay.
Growing up in the church was, it was an old church. So, it was all fire and brimstone and don't do this and don't do that. We went at 7 a.m. on Sundays. That was tough for a 10-year-old.
7 a.m. service. Wow.
I went,
That's committed.
Yeah. I went because we got to go to the carriage house afterwards. You know what I'm saying?
Nice. Carriage
Oh,
house.
the carriage.
house. Is it still there?
R.I.P.
It's not.
Ah.
It's not. They took it down.
So my dad was very religious. He was always went to the harvest festivals and not peacekeepers.
Brothers Keepers or
I can't remember the name. Something Keepers, a Promise Keepers is what it was called.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What was that? Like some kind of crusade or?
yeah, and they would like
For-
fill up stadiums
for men though, right?
Yeah, for men. It was all for men, and I don't know if it's still around anymore, but he was big into that.
Oh wow.
Big into church. And
Did he grow up like that or?
Yeah, my grandparents, my grandma and grandpa Mac are very religious people, and till this day they're always praying and always going to church, and they're just wonderful people. So my dad was funny, dry sense of humor,
I think it kind of runs in your family, huh?
yeah, not quick with words, but he always would get you if some perfect example. He was always a jokester, always kind of but you wouldn't know you were getting played, right? So one morning, Sunday morning, we're going to church, and I got a pair of sandals for, I think it was Christmas. And we're getting ready to go to church. I'm in shorts and sandals, and my dad goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to church." He said, "Okay." And so we go outside. He starts up, the old Dodge Shadow, red little 2-door car.
That's awesome.
And I go to open the door, and it's locked. I go, "Dad, what's up?" He goes, "You're wearing sandals. You can't go to church like that." I said, "Jesus wore sandals." And so he starts back in the driveway, rolls down his window, the old crank. And he goes, "Yeah, Jesus walked everywhere too. I'll see you at church."
That is hilarious.
That's awesome.
So,
funny. Let me clear something up. Jesus wore huaraches.
Oh, chunkless?
No, huaraches.
Oh, okay. So you just very, very, very passionate. We grew up with absolutely zero alcohol in the house. I think I saw my dad drink a beer once, and it freaked me out. We were at a Mexican restaurant, and he ordered a beer, and I was like, "What? This is my world's upside down now."
Yeah, for sure.
But we did everything together: baseball, games, everything.
How was like his relationship with your mom?
Great. Never fought. Never.
Shout out to
Bonnie, Mom, love you. And that's another great woman of God right there.
Amen.
She is a very passionate
Love
woman.
you, Bonnie.
They're not, my dad would, it was, we had a sick sense of humor in our house, but if someone got hurt, like if they hit their head or something, we'd laugh and
walk it off kind of thing.
Yeah, that's
Shake it off.
Yeah.
You're good.
That's how it was for us.
My dad would hit his head on the door frame or something. My mom would start laughing. Then he'd get mad, Why are you laughing? It's not funny.
But it just sounded like, I'm sorry not to cut you off, but just like a good upbringing that, I don't know, what would you call it?
Wholesome.
50s lifestyle.
Yeah. It was
good
very,
suburban.
Especially in La Mirada.
Suburban
you can't
family.
get any more suburban than that.
Yeah, definitely. So in June of 98, I wake up to my mom screaming from the front room. My dad had passed away from the heart disease.
Wow.
Which
How old were you?
I was 13. When a boy needs his father the most is when he passed.
You were in 8th grade? 7th grade?
No, I was in 7th grade going into 8th grade. Wow. And he was my rock. He was my everything. I felt like I had him. Not downgrading my brother and sister's relationship with my dad, but I was the oldest, and we did a ton of stuff together. When he started teaching, I went to school with to the same school, so we just drove together. We went everywhere together.
And your siblings are your sister's a lot younger than you.
We're all 2 years apart. So,
really? Is that it?
Well, me and Kelsey are 4 years apart. But
okay.
Yeah, so you're all right there.
Yeah. We're all right there, but we just enjoyed the same things. I think a little bit more.
No, for sure.
So he passed away.
How? Because you were there when you were at home.
Yeah.
How did that go down?
It was the absolute worst feeling in my life. If anyone's lost a parent at a young age, how it is. It's not
probably unexplainable. Really,
it's very unexplainable. It's
you guys didn't even see it coming, huh?
No, I mean,
well, you had the condition, but you never. I mean, you're not prepared for that in any way, shape, or form.
No. And what's the crazy part is that now with how they fix it. Back then they didn't know. He was on all kinds of medications and things like that, but now they just put a
stent. Or
not a stent, a pacemaker in.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so that's all they do now. So I mean. Wrong timing, but
fast forward 10 years and
then he's still here.
Different, right?
Yeah, it might be a little bit different story. But so it was a rough run. I started to rebel after that. I kind of denounced God. I said, I remember this. I was sitting in my room crying. It's about a day or two after this had happened, and we were planning the funeral, and everyone shows up at your house, and you have 75 casseroles because people just make stuff for you when someone in the family dies.
Yeah.
But I just remember looking up and going, this is not, you can't be doing this to me. This is not, I need this man more than anybody right now, and you've taken him away.
Yeah.
So I kind of, for a couple of years though, I was mad, not at anybody. I was a little upset. And,
I mean, you were, was it mostly directed towards God?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just because.
Which is understandable. I mean.
Well, and when you're 13, you don't know who to be mad at. You don't know. You just, you think, okay, well, this isn't fair. Why did this happen? Someone, my dad this should have never happened, but, so God must have been, trying to, he wasn't fair. It wasn't fair to me. So I thought, okay,
so,
well,
like, what kind of God is this?
Yeah, exactly.
The God that loves me. I mean, if you're 13 or you're 25 or you're 40 something, something tragic in life happens, like, that's very, I think, natural to place your blame there.
Oh yeah.
And scream out to God and blame him for, or whatever, so I don't, yeah.
Yeah.
From what it sounds like, but you didn't lose faith though.
I wanted to. I really wanted to say, there is no God. There is no, this is, and you get in that mindset of, okay, well, he's always there. It's always in the back of your head, but you try to push it out like, no, he's not real. He's not, he's not, no God would do this,
Right.
I was talking to Drew and I was telling him, like, I always knew you had a reverence for God because we would, just like in our little group, we would start saying things or whatever, and we'd be like, Richie, tell the truth, and he'd be like, swear to God, Rich, swear to God. He'd be like, I swear to God with a B, because he didn't want to defame the name of God, of Jesus or whatever. And but just by you doing that, I knew you were a God-fearing man.
Still,
and that was at while we were teenagers and stuff like that. But I always knew, like, okay, like he believes in God. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
So that's about the time, I switched schools. I ended up going to Granada Middle School for a little bit. Shout out Matadors. I always beat the Hillview Huskies in every sport.
Would you play school sports?
I guess. No, but so then I was there for a year, and then I ended up transferring to Hutchinson because I wanted to go to La Mirada to play football. There was no way I was going to Lucerne to play football.
Smart choice.
Yeah, right. So I transferred to La Mirada, or to Hutchinson, and that's where I met Drew. Mm-hmm. And I was going through a rough time at that point in my life. As a young kid, you're going through all these changes. You're getting hair in places you never had before. You're
the change.
Yeah, the change.
I'm still going through it.
Isaac still doesn't have hair. But so we're just I believe now that looking back on it, certain people were placed in certain places at that time for a reason. And as I get into my story, my faith gets stronger because of certain things that have happened. But kids are mean, and being the big kid was never great, and you get picked on a lot, and so that on top of that was going on. And
Were you bullied?
Yeah, because I wouldn't fight back. I wasn't a fighter. I wanted to be everyone's friend. I wanted to be, I wanted to love people. And
you're not mean spirited.
No, not at all.
Definitely like one of the nicest guys I've ever met in my life.
So I'm gonna tell a story about Drew when me and Drew first met.
Oh boy,
here we go.
and
put your seatbelts on, ladies and gentlemen.
And just a sidetrack note here. Drew's a great guy. But so I knew Drew about
mostly.
Yeah, mostly.
When you start with that, it's not going to be a good one.
So
let me preface this with.
So I had known Drew for all about 2 weeks, and Drew, Mr. Cool Guy here, comes riding up on a skateboard. I'm like, hey, let me ride that thing. He looks at me. He goes, you're gonna break it. And I said, dang. Oh, okay. But, he kind of looked at me and said, I'm just kidding. That Drew, the head wave, But
I still said it.
Yeah. But that's kids,
I'm sorry, Rich.
I love you, Drew.
What a mean guy.
But shortly after that, that's when we really became friends, though. So going into 8th grade freshman year, me and Drew and another friend, we were pretty close, and I would hang out with Drew and the other guys in the group before you came along. that's when we started really getting close, and we ended up starting going to Bible study, at the Cain's house.
Oh yeah.
How'd you get connected with that?
With Drew.
Oh, really? You
Yeah.
invited him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And another, and I kind of want to back up a little bit. I forgot to say this. I needed someone in my life at that moment. And, my dad's parents are great grandparents. They're great grandparents. They always have been. They're loving. But as a young 13-year-old boy, I needed some discipline and some work ethic and, just someone to guide me. And if someone ever runs into this, say you have a son out there and his father just passes or whatever, you need to step in if you're close, because without my grandpa Leroy,
Shout out to Grandpa Leroy.
as Drew called him, bad Leroy Brown, I would not be the man I am today. Talk about, hey, you should have that guy on your podcast. He's got some stories. He's a good.
Still whoop your ass right now?
Yes, he will. But he taught me everything. I mean, he didn't have to step in. He didn't have to do half the things he did. And my mom, she did her best, but you got to work full time, and you got a 13-year-old, 14-year-old boy, becoming a man. You need someone there, and that man.
Oh, this is how tough Grandpa Leroy is. Didn't he fall out of a tree and break his back?
He was cutting or pruning someone's tree from his church. And just on a whim, like, she's like, hey, can you come cut my tree? He's like, sure, I'll come cut your tree. And so he goes up there and then falls out and breaks his back. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Got out.
Yeah, shook himself off.
He is put in some dip. He's like, I got this.
He is a gangster, and he's one of the most
original,
the God-fearing man I know. And so
he is.
So he was that influence, that mentor. Well, I mean, he's your grandpa,
Yeah.
but that
he really took me under his wing.
Yeah.
I worked for him at his company. We went fishing. We did. I mean, there was times where I just needed to cry and talk, and still to this day, we'll talk like that. I'll still go over and have, if I'm having tough times, I'll let him know. I mean, he has done more for me than anybody, and he didn't have to. That's what I'm saying. He could have just sat back and been grandpa, but he didn't. He got up and said, okay, we got to get this. We got to raise a good God-fearing man. He taught me everything from how to treat a lady to how to treat people in life. We were making a delivery when I was working for him once, and I think we were in Compton or Linwood, one of those areas, and we stopped at one of, like, a liquor store he needed to get a can of chew, and we stop, and he pulls out, and guy comes up, and a guy's car wasn't starting. We're in Compton, and he comes over and goes, hold on, I'm gonna go see if this guy needs help. And this guy had the biggest like dumbfounded look on his face, like, what are you doing?
Not only that, what are you doing out here?
Yeah. And so he goes, hey, I didn't know if you needed a hand or not. And the guy goes, oh yeah, can you help me, give me a jump? And he goes, yeah, no problem. So he jumps the guy's car, and he goes on his way, and actions like that were so valuable. And my dad was a big part of my life and taught me a lot of stuff, but I think there were some things that my grandfather taught me that, were just invaluable. I mean, you couldn't put a price on it. Things like, from like how to, my dad wasn't a big outdoorsman. My grandfather is. Baiting a hook, shooting a gun. I mean, that kind of stuff, This guy grew up on a farm in Missouri with no money, and they bartered and traded stuff. So, I mean, he knows hard work. He knows how to, if the apocalypse ever happens, I'm going to his house, because that guy could survive on, whatever.
Yeah.
So, but
that's awesome.
yeah, he was a big influence in my life, and he stepped up big time. And I just, first of all, he's going to ask me. It's like a radio show, right?
Yeah. What's a podcast?
He'll never be able to get to it.
And then you'll say, okay, what AM station is that on? And I'll have to plug in my phone. Hey, just listen.
Fire up the transistor.
But where I'm getting at with this whole story is, if you have the chance to mentor somebody, do it. I mean, you could change someone's life. If you run into something like that, you could just do something for somebody, and whether it's through a church, a ministry, or just somebody that needs help, do it. It just because you could be helping change someone's life who's in a bad place.
Yeah, if you're a coach,
Yes.
A teacher, an uncle, aunt, or you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
not the obviously not the parent because you know,
Yeah.
they've lost that parent. Stepping in actively like your grandpa did. It sounds like was the world for you.
Oh my God! Without him, it would have just been, I don't know, maybe jail, maybe what? Who knows? And I wasn't ever mean spirited or bad spirited, but when we got to that point in our lives, well, my life especially, I was wanting to party, drink, smoke, whatever, just because it was fun, and I was tired of being the good kid, I guess. I wanted to be bad a little bit, and so we, I started going down that path a little bit. I really never lost my faith, because my grandpa kind of always steered me back to it. He never judged me, never got mad at me, never once did anything, to upset me. He just wanted to make sure I was on the right path.
Yeah.
So freshman year, we're in about freshman year, and Drew, we're doing Bible study, with a couple guys, and we go on this retreat. That was it Big Bear?
Somewhere up there. Was that 9th grade?
Yeah, it was 9th grade because we weren't driving yet.
Okay.
And Drew's dad, Chris Kane's dad was there.
Mm-hmm.
But I just remember it was me, you, and Gurzy.
Gurzy was there, yeah.
Petey was there.
Was
Alvarez.
he?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was, just talk about a great experience.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget Drew's dad telling us, you guys need to lead. You need to lead by example and lead your peers and show them how to walk. Well, we get back.
Drew sure did show us how to walk.
Well, we get back, and that lasted all of about 48 hours.
Yeah.
You guys
We were pumped up for a little bit.
Yeah,
That's
we
funny.
we're all crying. We just, oh God, this is great. I love. Oh, and and Drew's dad can spin a tale and get somebody going. And we were all about it. And then we get home like, hey, let's go over there.
And and I've kind of touched on it too. Like my story is like having that side, but then the other side of wanting to party and girls and all that. Like it was that struggle, and so I mean we were sincere about that, but then you get back down the mountain and it's a little harder to keep it going.
It's temptation, man. It's tough. The thought of having a good time. Not only that, everybody else is having a good time, and you're trying to go rogue and do the right thing, and do the God thing, and it's just not as appealing, even though it is and it can be. I mean, ultimately it is. I mean, it's way better, but it's just hard to see that in the fog, in the muck.
Yeah,
it's rough.
We and it's not. We weren't bad kids. We never were. We were good hearted,
for sure.
But we didn't. But we just did some things that we shouldn't be doing.
Well, and I was thinking about our little crew, with the 5 of us. We were kind of a group of kids that we can pretty much hang out with anybody. Like, we didn't have any qualms with anybody. Like, we can just kind of go anywhere and no one mess with. We're always welcome. It's because we were like, we were kind. Like, we weren't trying to prove a point. We were just there to hang out.
Yeah, or and jerks or.
But I think all of
that.
us, we all were just cool.
Yeah. Well, because you were hanging out with me. So.
Yeah. I mean, it became cool. I mean, I was pretending. I'm still working on it.
So, I really, gosh, there was times though when I'd be jealous because, Drew would have that relationship with his dad, and, jealousy really hit a chord, and we had some other friends, I didn't, he's like, God, you guys are so lucky. And someone be fighting with their dad or screw you, man. I'm out of here. And I'm like, dude. And I would always say, dude, that's your dad.
Yeah.
You don't realize how lucky you are. And so we would there was a lot of jealousy sometimes a little bit with that though. If you guys don't remember, but there was some jealousy in there, and I really didn't show it.
Well, you didn't show it.
I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that you kind of kept to yourself.
Oh, a lot. Yeah.
I think there were because I can't remember any specifics, but I just always kind of remember you not really being vulnerable and really kind of talking about the way you felt or
Yeah, but I mean, not to cut you off, but did any of us like really like get down to like, like the feelings and like we're guys.
No, I think I was. I opened up to Rich a bunch.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Well, I guess what
I've opened up to you a bunch.
What I was I'm like now, but I was just thinking of like growing up back then.
No, I see what you're saying.
I knew that your dad passed away, but you didn't talk about it all the time. And not that I expected you to always bring it up, but it was just because it wasn't talked about. It's like I kind of forgot about that, and to my shame, like not being a good friend and seeing that. But that sucks.
Not only that, I think you covered it up pretty good too.
Yeah, it was there was a shield. There's like a force field, and like my wife, when we first started dating, and I wouldn't be vulnerable at all. I had this force field up, or I showed no emotion. I couldn't be too high, I couldn't be too low, because if I did that, I'd be vulnerable. Yeah. So I just kept it, like a robot. Even, but when we'd go out and party, and which was great, not great, but I would be able to be happy because of altering your mind. And
you mean getting wasted, right?
Yeah. But I never really had an issue with addiction with it, but it was always okay. Well, we're gonna go party. I didn't say no. Let's go out and slam some beers or whatever. I'm trying to get back on track here, Isaac. You crazy, you Chumash Indian.
Am I digressing? It's funny. Okay.
I was real jealous of the guys that still had their dad, and were kind of treating them like not okay. That really upset me, because I was here thinking, hey, you guys have this person still in your life. You shouldn't be treating them like that. And I would never say anything to anybody, but that was how I felt at the time. So we'll fast forward here to after high school. We'll skip all those good stories.
Give us one.
Oh boy,
give us one.
Well, what was high school was? I mean, I think what was really highlight was us playing football together.
Oh my
sports,
God! Yeah.
That bond that we had.
And I was going to say, I think our bond grew out of playing football together. We were a team, and not only that, we were a winning team.
We did everything together, and you guys might not have realized at the time, but I needed that more than anything. We did. I mean, we absolutely did everything together. We were not. I mean, people make fun of us because like, oh, where's your boyfriend Drew at? But we had a great bond, a special bond. I think till this day we're still friends. We've known each other for 20 plus years.
Yeah. And I think it was I always say like football is a great sport, and like I tell my wife, and she always like rolls her eyes, but you develop like lifelong bonds.
For
like
sure.
you go through crap and like adversity, and you overcome it, and that it's just it's kind of like the military. I mean, military is a little bit more intense, because lives are on the line, but it's that same idea of that brotherhood.
You're going through everything together. You're suffering together during Hell Week. You're winning together, losing together.
Yeah.
The positives dedefinitely outweigh the negatives. Yeah. We'll put it that way.
So I just wanted to give a shout out to football, and not baseball.
You know what? So Rich played center.
Yeah.
And I was a fullback, so I was right behind Rich, and there was this is not good. There was a running back that we had, and certain times when I felt like, I wasn't feeling this guy too much, I would tell Rich, just let this one go, and me and him lead blockers, just kind of missed the block.
Wow.
But no,
I guess some people didn't understand the concept of team. But anyway,
Isaac, you were such a bad
But
influence.
but it was cool though because you were right. I used to stand right behind you in the huddle. That was fun.
We had good times. We were a good team.
Yeah.
Remember when Drew put his hand through the glass?
First game back from like I don't know how long you were laid off, like because your knee. It was your first game back from your knee being healed when you
No.
played Norwalk.
no,
That wasn't your first game back.
no.
Oh, okay. Well, nonetheless, you still put your hand through a window.
Yeah, through your glass in the warm-ups. Stupid. Because remember the floors were like slippery. We had to have
with
our cleats on, and so I was going out for the group, and then like just slipped and went to catch myself and put it through like a glass cupboard or something.
It was like a cabinet. Yes.
And Goody was pulling glass out of my hand. He's fine.
He was wrapping it with tape and toilet paper.
Get out there, kid.
Shout out to Goody, R.I.P.
Yeah.
So fast forward, high school's great experience, except for some of the things we shouldn't have been doing.
Right.
We're very lucky that nothing.
made it.
We made it. Yes. I distinctly remember getting kicked out of someone's house on Memorial Day. Drew sliding over the hood of the car like Starsky and Hutch. Someone's dad came home early.
That's right.
Hold on, I wasn't here for. I wasn't there for that one.
Pulled a Marty McFly over the hood.
On whose car?
Rich's.
My 77 Ranchero.
That's awesome.
Get out of there quick.
I digress. But so fast forward, high school, and I started working right away. I mean, I didn't have the means to go to college. I wanted to play football, but I knew it wasn't gonna.
Oh, you played a year at Long Beach City?
Yeah, Long Beach City. But I knew that why I'm gonna be wasn't gonna go to the NFL. Wasn't gonna be in the Pro Bowl and be a.
You didn't know that, Rich.
Let's face it, not a lot of call for 6 feet linemen, And so I just started working, and I ended up at a great company that I still work for today.
Awesome.
I was able to move around.
The official sponsor of One Story Podcast, RST. Get your refrigerator and air conditioning supplies.
Yes. So I was afforded the opportunity to move, and at the time, I thought it was a great idea because I was kind of running from my problems, running from the, thinking if I move far enough away, which was stupid at the time, but if I move far enough away, maybe, it'll be better.
What were you trying to get away from?
Just the pain, I guess, of what happened. It always lingered, but
With your dad?
Yeah, with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And I left a lot of people that, loved me, and I didn't realize it, but I had more people that loved me, that were here, but I was selfishly just like, hey, I'm getting the heck out of here. So we 2005, I met my beautiful, beautiful wife.
Hey now.
Shout out to Ashley.
Ashley, my Polynesian princess.
Hey. Moana.
Moana. Hey, my son loves that movie.
Oh yeah.
I've watched it 833 times. But my wife is
Moana. Make way. No, nobody. No, okay.
Okay, we can edit that out.
we my wife is a rock star. Always has been, always will be. She puts up with me, so she's
It's okay, Drew. She doesn't listen. I mean, Rich. She'll
she'll listen to this one to make sure I'm minding my P's and Q's, But so we met in 2005, 2006. Got married. You guys were both in my wedding. You remember that day? That was a good day.
Great wedding.
fun.
Great wedding. So then we moved to Oregon. We lived in Oregon for 5 years and worked and
Because I was with the job, you got to transfer.
Yeah, I was afforded the opportunity to move somewhere, move up, so I took it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot less expensive at the time to live there. Now it's crazy.
We visited you once.
Yeah.
that
You
was cool.
You guys were snowboarding.
We went and ended up doing some snowboarding in Mount Hood.
Yeah, it was you, Dustin,
And David.
White.
Yeah.
Shout out to David White. And then Isaac came up and visited us, and then we would go to Seattle to your parents' house up there for
we did do that.
Thanksgiving. Yeah,
Yeah, we did do that.
That
We
was
did that
fun.
a couple times, huh?
a couple times. Yeah,
That was fun.
That was back in Isaac's crazy days.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about it next week.
Later. So everything's great, going good. And then about 5 years in Oregon, we moved to Denver. And Denver was a great city to, I think, visit. My wife loved it. It was all right for me. Wasn't that great. And something was always missing, I was always looking for something. And about that time, I got a really bad anxiety attack, and I didn't know what was going on. Now, for people that don't know what anxiety is, it's a form of depression. Basically, it feels like your world's ending, like the world's crashing down on you. You have like a sick pit in your stomach. You can't focus. It can lead into severe depression if you don't watch it. I was driving I was driving home one day, and I thought I was going to pass out because I didn't know what was going on, and it's the anxiety was makes you feel like you're going to pass out. And everyone has a level of anxiety because it's your fight or flight. That's what they call it. So.
And I imagine within the world of depression and anxiety, there's all different scales and how you feel what and how you react to different things, right?
Yes. And so I'm driving home one day, and I also have I have obsessive compulsive thoughts, which is another a trait of general anxiety disorder.
But you didn't know this.
I did
when
not
all
know.
This was happening.
No, not at the time. I didn't know what was going on. So I told my wife, I said, "Hey, man, something's not right. I need." And my lovely wife, she goes, "Okay, we're going to the hospital, and we need to get you better." And so I go into the hospital, and you guys don't even know this story yet. I tell the nurse what's going on, and she goes, "Well, there's nothing physically wrong with you?" I said, "No, I got this crazy stuff going on in my head." And she goes, "All right, follow me this way, sir." And so they sent me into the ER, and they put me in this room, and there's like plexiglass over the TV. There's a guard outside going, "What the heck?" And at this point, so what I chalk it up to is that all those years that I was steady, I wasn't, I had that force field up. It all came crashing down. I had, I couldn't stop crying. I was a mess, and so
all the stuff that you had been kind of tucking in deep down inside was coming out all at one time.
My, what do they call it? You have, coping mecanisms. Right. Well, a lot of times as you grow older, those coping mechanisms don't work anymore. And I lost it. I couldn't figure out what was going on, why this was happening, and I couldn't deal with it anymore. And so we finally, I couldn't keep it at bay, the anxiety. And so my wife said, "All right, we're going to the hospital." So we go to the hospital. So I'm in the room, and they evaluate me. Like, they come in and okay, what's going on? And I tell them, and they're on their little thing. Okay, all right. And then the guy goes, "Well, you need help." And I said, "Yeah, I know. That's why I'm here." And he goes, "All right, well, we're going to get you into a place." And so I spent 4 days in a psychiatric hospital.
Wow.
And which, come to find out, for people with anxiety is the worst thing that could happen to you.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Because you always have the worst in, like, with anxiety, you feel like the worst outcome is always going to happen. So when this happened, I go into the psychiatric hospital, and there's people in there schizophrenic, bipolar, severely suicidal and depressed, and it's just making my anxiety worse.
Turn it up a notch.
Yeah. So I get there, and I'm glad at the time I went, because then I could see that my problems weren't as bad as some others, which kind of helps.
Give some perspective
on life. And man, I mean, there was people in there that I was in a room with you bunk up, and the guy he's like, "Hey, as soon as I get out of here, I'm just gonna end it."
Oh,
what?
God.
Yeah, and I try, and I was like, "No, man, you can't do that." And he, older guy, lost his wife, and his kid left, and his wife left, lost his job, and He goes, what happened to you? I said, nothing. My life's great. I just don't know what's wrong. And he kind of looked at me like, what are you doing here? And I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. And I hope they can figure it out. And in 4 days, they kind of figured out what was going on, but it made my anxiety worse being in there. And it was a tough 4 days because, I mean, you're not with your wife, you're not with your kids, you're not with your family. They come and visit you during visiting hours. And
was it against your will, or did you have a choice to be in there? Or
yeah. And I wanted to go to get help, like
to figure out what was going on.
Right. And
but just the environment wasn't conducive to what you're
to my disease,
through.
My illness, and so they diagnosed me with a lot of things they shouldn't have, because they say, okay, well, you got this or this. Because, I mean, it's not really, mental illness is so new, I think, in stages of what they're diagnosing people with and what people have. It's still kind of new. It's still taboo to talk about it or talk about people that have it, or, oh, no, don't talk about your problems. It's not manly to talk about your problems.
For sure.
So so I go and I see a psychiatrist, and he's talking to me, and he goes, well, do you see little green people, or, do you hear voices? No, not at all. And he goes, okay, we'll go see the therapist. And I see the therapist, and we start talking about things. And my father's death, definitely, when I look back on it, it stemmed from it. So when I was a kid, after he had passed away, if I couldn't see my brother or my sister or my mom, I thought the worst, like something happened to him, separation anxiety. And then growing up, I was telling you guys, last week how, if we were out partying or whatever, and Drew would take off in his car, or you'd go somewhere, I wouldn't be okay until I knew you guys got home.
Do you remember we used to call you Dad?
Yeah, exactly.
You remember that?
I'm pretty sure.
Old Dad.
I was the dad of the group, and I'm pretty sure we stayed out of jail because of me.
No,
sometimes.
I believe that. You definitely.
Yeah.
So looking back on all these points in my life where these issues would pop up, I realized, okay, this is what's happening. I finally got in and got a good therapist now, and she was telling me, okay, this is what's going on, and yeah, this is exactly what's going on. She goes, honey, you have anxiety. Okay, well, what's that? I didn't know, you know?
Yeah.
I thought anxiety was just something you got when, you were in a tough situation, or, you're about to get in a fight.
Right.
And she goes, no, some people, everyone has a level of it, but it's your brain can't control it. It's a chemical imbalance. Okay. So, the perception of people on antidepressants, or you're a zombie. I'm here to say you're not. I mean, you're functioning. It makes your life a ton better if you have this kind of illness. And so
when you were getting, finding out about all this, like how were you feeling during it? Were you like kind of ashamed of it, or were you more of like, yes, I'm finally getting help?
I think I had suffered with it for so long. I was so happy I was finally getting help.
It was like a relief.
A relief. At the time, you don't think it's going to get better because you're just stuck in this pit. But and antidepressants and drugs like that, it takes like 4 to 8 weeks to work. Oh. So it doesn't work right away. They can give you something to like lower it, but you got to take it like Xanax or whatever. But it takes 4 to 8 weeks to work. So you're still going through this process, and as they up dosages, it gets a little worse for a little bit, then it gets better. So when I'm there, I see my mother-in-law coming because she had flown right out, and I see my wife come in, and I just start bawling. It's like one of the last days I'm at the hospital, and I heard a voice, and I don't want to say. I mean, it was God. I know it was, and he said, "You need to go home." And I just started breaking down as soon as I saw him. Say, "Hey, we need to move home. We need to move home. We need to." I just crying. We need to go home.
Oh man!
And my wife says, "What's wrong?" I said, "I need to be near family. I need to be near. We've been gone long enough." And the little tidbit I've left out of the story is that we had tried to get pregnant for 10 years. I mean, that's all we've ever wanted as kids, and it couldn't happen. We were told it couldn't happen. We did, a lot of like fertility stuff and things like that, and it's not going to happen for you guys. So here's your holy smokes moment, Isaac. We moved back February 2016. The next month, she's pregnant.
Yeah, I remember. Wow. It was like right when you guys moved back.
Wow.
So all these things have happened, as much as I've always wanted to say, hey, God,
that's crazy.
You're not real. You're not doing this. But he's always kind of placed things back, saying, no, you're here. Here you go. And when I had that bout, when I was battling, and mental illness never goes away. You're always going to have it, and but with therapy and medication, you get better. You can live a normal life, and
jeez.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about that, how God told him go home, and he goes home, and then there's something waiting for him. His wife gets pregnant right out. It's just like that's blowing me away right now.
And I don't even think I've told my wife that yet. So surprise. But it was just that I was like to the core where it shook me, where I'm crying like, no, we need to go home. We need to. She's like, why? And I was, let me tell you, I was in my work life, home life, everything was great. So this obviously happened for a reason. And and that's what they kept on asking me, like, did you lose someone close to you? Did you? No, everything's great.
Oh, like what triggered the
what triggered it?
Yeah,
no, everything's great. It's amazing. I'm doing good with work. I'm building our business out here, our branch. I'm doing great things. We're meeting great people. We're doing great stuff. I do not know. And then the whole thing with you got to go home, and it was you can't tell me that wasn't the Lord working right there.
No,
and then little baby Hank coming along
Hank
the way.
the Tank. Hank was born November 12th, 2016, a couple weeks early, but we God, he's the gift, and it's amazing.
So you feel that, I mean, to get you back here, you had to have that bout or battle with and finding out about your anxiety and OCD.
Yeah.
And then in turn, I mean, that was the reason for coming back.
Yeah, and
because you wouldn't have come back otherwise.
What else was kind of cool, like kind of now that I'm thinking about it, your work opened up a position just so that you can come back.
Yeah, so when I work for a very great family. It's family owned. We're a big company, but it's family owned and ran by a very Christian man, very religious, just an awesome man. And I had called and said, hey, I want to move home. And they said, yeah, come back. He goes, we don't have any management positions open at the time, but you come and do sales for us. And I said, oh, all right. So we came back home. I did sales for about a year and kind of built up the business that we needed to. And then we opened another operation out in Corona, and I'm managing that area now, and it's been a really great company to work for.
But it's like God had opened a door for you, and made a way for you, and it's like you got. Not only did he make that possible, then he, you like we were saying, you got the miracle of having your baby, because it's a miracle,
Absolute
really
miracle.
Is.
Absolute miracle.
Yeah. We've talked about that before. Where where are the miracles? People ask that. Oh,
here's
where
one
are the
right
miracles
now.
of the Bible? That's a miracle. You guys could not have a baby.
Yeah.
I remember you guys did in vitro. You guys did
everything,
all this stuff, spending all kinds of money on trying to get pregnant, and then you just come back after God.
Yeah.
Which that's a part you never told me.
Yeah.
After God told you to, and then boom.
Did you feel?
Pregnant.
Was it something that you felt like you should have always come back, and you were kind of running from it? Or
Yeah.
was it just in that yeah?
I feel like we had I was running away from the problems, and I was trying to get away, but you can't run away from those kind of problems. And
you were going to need to face them at some point.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think this happened so I could get help with my problem before we had Hank. And so we can get that, okay, you're going to figure this out now, and then you're going to be good to be able to raise your son, you know?
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then also, I mean, to be here right now on this show, spreading awareness for mental health, like you were saying, like where it is or can be a taboo for people to admit it to those around them or to seek help and not really know what's going on. Like you're a perfect story of
Absolutely.
you got to find the help.
You know, you grow up being the tough guy, or you want to be the tough guy. Well, mental illness. I mean, you could walk on a broken leg and be a tough guy. You can't deal with this stuff.
And by the way, Richie played football on a broken leg.
Tell that story, Rich.
I broke my leg and
Played on it for how long?
about 2 weeks.
And remember,
We were all giving him crap. Rich, you're not hurt. Yeah, you're not hurt.
leg was
Brings an X-ray to school.
Oh
Here
my
you go.
God. And your leg was so swollen too. Oh, we're jerks.
He had big calves. Yeah. That was just his leg.
That was funny. Remember, one of the coaches was giving you crap about it too?
It was Goody. Remember he punched me?
Oh man.
Oh man.
But no, but what you're saying, like, you know, you can, like you said, you can be a tough guy and a physical toughness, but a mental struggle or a chemical imbalance is a whole different animal.
You have to seek out the help for it. And so if you're out there and you listening and might be dealing with some of that stuff, go see a pastor, go talk to a therapist, go get help, because you're suffering right now and you don't need to be. There's so many things now that they can do for you to get you back to normal. And it might take a little bit, but it's better than suffering. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's better than being, laying in bed depressed or always walking around thinking something bad's going to happen, or you got to touch your doorknob 333 times before you leave the house.
So you got help, medically, through medication and doctors and stuff like that. Did you ever? And you're great. I mean, you look happy, and we've been talking and stuff like that, and so I'm really happy about that. Have you looked to God for healing in any way?
Yes, and I have a slight issue with churches. So and churches are ran by people. People have certain agendas sometimes. I'm not saying every church is bad. I'm not saying every church is greedy, is not doing it for the right reasons. But there's a lot of people in church that are Sunday quarterbacks, Monday quarterbacks. They go to church but they're the first people to be talking behind someone's back or doing things they shouldn't be doing. And again, like you've said before on your podcast, churches are ran by people, and people sometimes don't do things the way they should.
So does that affect your relationship with God?
Absolutely not.
But it can for some people.
Yeah,
for some people,
sure.
and some people need church. A lot of people need church.
But also to the point that like that can turn people off to where that's giving Jesus a bad name.
Yeah.
To where, I mean, Jesus is beautiful. That's not him, and it should be our job as Christians, if you call yourself a Christian, to be pointing towards Jesus or representing him.
Well, Jesus
in the right way.
Called us to do that. He actually calls us to be more to be a reflection of himself. To be more, that's actually our mission in life.
Yeah.
Our God-given mission is to become more Christ-like.
Oh yeah, and I would think I would get more out of doing maybe like a Sunday or Sunday morning or Friday night Bible study than at going to church. And there are a lot of great pastors and a lot of great churches out there. For me, it's not the pastors, it's not the churches. Sometimes churches are ran kind of like a business.
But my question was more like looking to God for any kind of help.
Oh yeah, I mean, I pray all the time, and I still do, and I still, look to Him for help and guiding me in some ways, and again, I still kind of have that persona of being the, my force field up, so I don't allow people to see that in me, but I do pray to God every day. I pray for help when I need it, or if someone needs help, I ask Him to help them. I prayed for you guys a lot.
Thank you.
My relationship with God is different than a lot of people. And I've come back to him,
And I bet you it's the same as a lot of people too, though.
Oh yeah. I don't. A lot of people need church. They do, and they need that community, and that going on Sundays. I don't need to worship at a place, and I don't have to be told how to live the word or live by God. I can show it by actions, not just showing up to church,
but living Monday through Saturday,
being there to, and this is one thing my dad.
So not Sunday.
Well, he's saying not going to
Sunday we go hard.
That's not
just
what I meant.
just through actions. My dad would. We didn't have much money, but my dad would give a homeless lady and give her money, and we didn't have much money, but the offering he would put money in because he really believed, and that wasn't just on Sundays, that was every day. And my grandfather's the same way. He's every day he is living the way you should be. And we're all going to have problems. We're all going to have issues. We're all going to slip up. I mean, that's just being a human. Mm-hmm. But if you can always just try to strive to be that person, helping people and being there for people and being just a good, genuine person, that's all you really need, and growing your community, your bubble of people like that is also helpful.
So where are you at now? You're back here in California. You got, your beautiful wife, your beautiful son.
Yes.
Things are good as far as...
Oh yeah, things are great, and I still run into some issues sometimes, and that's going to take a while. It does with the medication. You got to get the right dosages. You got to get the right one, but no, overall I'm great. I'm happy. I'm living it's unbelievable to be back home with all you guys and our families and being able to see everyone, more often than once a year.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's. I love it. We're in a great place right now.
That's good, man. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you for just sharing with us, man. Thank you. That's like you were saying, it's hard to talk to one person about the things that you're feeling and the things that you're thinking, and you just shared it with everybody. So I appreciate it, man.
I just the main thing is to spread awareness about it, and don't hide it. Don't. It feels good to talk about it. Go find someone, anybody to talk about it, and get help, because you don't need to suffer in silence.
Yeah.
No, amen, man. I love you, Rich. Thank you.
Love you guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I love you, bro. Thanks for sharing your story. Great story. And I feel like, because I've known you for how many years,
a lot of years.
Now I know you in a different way, a little bit more personal or intimate way of how much you opened up, and I appreciate that. And I do hope that, in the same way that the miracle of Hank came about, there can be miracles that happen from people that hear this and they go and get help and their lives are changed because of something that you said on this podcast. And so I'm happy you came on and you had the courage to do that and share. I think it's beautiful.
Thank you. I'm glad to be on, guys. Glad to share.
So, Mr. Labrie, let's close this thing out. We'll encourage people to follow us on our Facebook page. You can find us on Instagram, One Story Podcast. And as always, you can email us at onestorypodcast@gmail.com. Let us know who you are and where you're listening from. We just love to get connected with you. And if you want to come on and share your story, like Rich did today, we'd love to have you on.
Yeah, you're like you're always saying that your story is important, no matter where you're coming from, what walk of life you have, and we want to hear it. And I think it will help people. People will relate. We're not doing this alone. Mm-hmm. Everybody is there's someone out there that's going through what you're going through or has gone through what you're gone through, and so we just encourage you to to even if you don't share it with us, share it with somebody.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
I go to
point.
church with a bunch of people, and I'm like, look at all these faces. I'm like, man, I know all these people have great stories, but it's hard. You can't get to them all.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the awesome thing about this podcast. We can fellowship and hear someone's story that you wouldn't have heard otherwise. So,
and hopefully it sparks, like you said, other you guys out there to tell your story with those around you, or find out the people in your life, their full story. So, yeah.
So with that, I ask that you open your eyes, listen closely, soften your heart, and ask God to reveal Himself to you.
Amen.